On the morning of October 1st, 2016, Todd Ore stepped into the rugged wilderness of the Madison Valley in southwest Montana. Autumn had begun to settle over the high country, frosting the grass and sharpening the air. An experienced hunter and trail runner, Ore was scouting for elk in the North Fork of Bear Creek area, a region known for abundant wildlife and a strong grizzly bear presence. He carried bear spray in a chest holster and a large caliber pistol on his hip, aware that preparation was essential in this landscape. Shortly after sunrise, Ore emerged from a stand of trees into an open meadow. Near the timberline, roughly 80 yards away, he saw a sow grizzly bear with 2 cubs. The wind was at his back, carrying his scent directly toward them. The sow stood on her hind legs to investigate. Ore immediately shouted to identify himself and began backing away slowly, careful not to turn his back or make sudden movements. For a brief moment, the bear dropped to all fours, and it seemed the encounter might end without violence. Instead, the sow charged. The distance closed with terrifying speed. Ore reached for his bear spray, removed the safety, and waited until the bear was within range. At approximately 25 feet, he discharged the canister, releasing a dense orange cloud between them. She ran directly through the spray and slammed into him, knocking him face first into the dirt and driving the air from his lungs. Ore curled into a defensive position, pressing his face into the ground and covering the back of his neck with his hands. The bear was on him instantly. Her weight pinned him as she bit into his left arm, her teeth sinking deep into muscle. She shook him violently, tossing his body side to side. Her claws raked across his backpack, which absorbed much of the damage, before she bit into the side of his head, opening a deep gash above his ear. Ore stayed silent and still, knowing resistance could provoke a lethal response. After several brutal seconds, the bear disengaged and disappeared into the trees with her cubs. Bleeding heavily, Ore stood and assessed his injuries. Fueled by adrenaline, he retrieved his pistol and began hiking toward his truck, parked 3 miles away. He moved quickly, scanning the brush and listening for any sign of pursuit, believing the worst was over. 5 minutes later, the forest erupted with movement. The same sow charged again. There was no time to react. The second attack was faster and more violent. The bear knocked him down and immediately targeted his upper body. She bit into his already injured left arm, snapping the radius bone with an audible crack. Pain surged through him as she tore into his shoulder and chest, ripping through clothing and skin. Ore went completely limp, playing dead as the bear clawed at his head and neck. She stood on his back, pressing him into the rocky trail, waiting for any sign of life. At last, the bear stepped away. Ore waited until the sounds of her movement faded entirely before rising. With a broken arm, deep lacerations, and blood-soaked clothing, he hiked the remaining distance to his vehicle. 45 minutes later, he reached it and drove himself 17 miles to the hospital in Ennis, Montana, surviving an encounter few ever do. Doctors later treated multiple bite wounds, fractures, and deep lacerations to his scalp and torso. Despite the severity of his injuries, Ore survived without losing consciousness, a fact he credited to instinct, preparation, and an understanding of bear behavior. The incident became widely known after he recorded a video describing the attack shortly after leaving the hospital, his face swollen and stitched. Wildlife officials later located and euthanized the sow after determining she posed an ongoing risk. Ore's experience stands as a stark reminder of the power of wild animals and the thin line separating routine outdoor activity from sudden catastrophe in grizzly country. It also illustrates how survival often depends on calm decisions under extreme pressure, respect for nature, and accepting that even experience offers no guarantees in unpredictable wilderness encounters like this one. On the morning of October 28, 2025, 37-year-old elk hunter Mark Ellison hiked into the Caribou-Targhee National Forest near Reynolds Pass along the Idaho-Montana border. The temperature hovered just above freezing, and a thin crust of snow covered the ground, crunching softly under each step. Ellison, a construction supervisor from Idaho Falls, had hunted this unit for several seasons and knew the terrain well. He carried a .300 Winchester Magnum rifle, a sidearm on his belt, and bear spray clipped to his chest harness. Signage throughout the area warned of active grizzly bear habitat, a reality Ellison respected and prepared for. At approximately 8:15 a.m., he moved slowly through a patchwork of lodgepole pine and small clearings, expecting elk to feed there. Fresh tracks in the snow indicated that a small herd had passed through before dawn. Ellison followed the trail, pausing frequently to glass the ridges, listening to the wind whispering through the trees and the distant call of birds. The shifting breeze made it difficult for him to remain undetected, but also created uncertainty for wildlife, including bears. He knew that even a quiet morning could turn dangerous if he wasn't alert. Around 8:40 a.m., Ellison entered a narrow clearing bordered by dense brush on one side and a stand of downed trees on the other. As he stepped into the open, a sudden movement to his left caught his eye. A grizzly sow rose from behind a tangle of fallen logs just 30 yards away. Two cubs, only a few months old, appeared near her, partially hidden by brush. The wind carried Ellison's scent directly toward them, and the sow locked onto him instantly, her ears pinned back and muscles tensed. Ellison raised his arms, speaking loudly to identify himself as human, while backing away at an angle to give the bears space. The sow dropped to all fours, but there was no warning bluff. She lunged forward into a full charge, closing the gap with terrifying speed. Ellison instinctively reached for his bear spray, but the dense brush and short distance made it impossible to deploy effectively. With the bear rapidly approaching, he brought his rifle to his shoulder, planting his feet firmly and exhaling to steady his aim. At less than 15 yards, he squeezed the trigger, the first round striking her chest. The impact staggered the bear, but did not stop her. She stumbled, then continued forward, still focused on him. Adrenaline sharpened Ellison's movements as he worked the bolt by feel, chambering a second round while stepping backward, keeping the muzzle trained on the charging animal. His second shot hit higher, near the base of her neck. The sow collapsed at his feet, sliding in the snow until she lay motionless a few yards from where he stood. For several long seconds, Ellison remained motionless, rifle raised, watching the cubs retreat into the trees. His pulse raced, his breathing was heavy, yet he had not been physically injured. He carefully repositioned himself to maintain visibility of both the sow and the surrounding brush. Once assured the area was safe, he activated his satellite communicator to contact his hunting partner, positioned on a ridge half a mile away. He then called local Idaho Fish and Game authorities, reporting the encounter in detail. The initial sighting, his efforts to back away, the sudden charge, and the close-range defensive shots. By late morning, wildlife officers and federal land managers had arrived at the scene. They examined the sow, confirming she was an adult grizzly in good condition, and documented cub tracks moving away from the site. Forensic analysis of the carcass and surrounding snow supported Ellison's account of a surprise close-range encounter and defensive shooting. Officials confirmed that the incident qualified as self-defense, highlighting the razor-thin margin for error when hunting in grizzly country. Ellison reflected on the morning's events while leaving the area. Despite careful preparation, even an experienced hunter could be caught off guard. The encounter served as a stark reminder that wilderness hunting, particularly in grizzly habitat, requires constant awareness, respect for wildlife, and the ability to respond quickly when survival is on the line.
Hey, we need your help. If you've loved these terrifying true stories so far, we need your help to keep sharing them and create new episodes every week. Please grab your phone, scan the QR code now, and tap the subscribe button that opens on your screen.
On October 26, 2025, just 2 days before the Caribou-Targhee incident, another elk hunter faced a life-or-death moment in Grizzly country. 44-year-old Brian Keller, an electrician from Pocatello, Idaho, was hunting north of the small community of Kilgore, along the southern boundary of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. The country was a patchwork of open parks, dense black timber, and willow-choked creek bottoms, prime habitat for both elk and bears in late October. The autumn air was crisp, with frost forming in shaded depressions, and the scent of damp earth filled the forest. Keller set out before dawn, hiking along an old logging road with his hunting partner, Josh Ramirez. At first light, they split up, planning to still hunt separate drainages and meet again at midday. Keller carried a .338 Winchester Magnum rifle, bear spray strapped to his chest harness, and a GPS unit tracking his route. He was familiar with the area, having hunted there in previous seasons, and he had seen fresh grizzly tracks before. He understood that even experienced hunters could be surprised in this environment. At approximately 9:20 a.m., Keller eased along the edge of a small meadow that opened onto a marshy willow flat. A faint cow elk call echoed through the drainage. He paused, scanning for movement. The call came again, closer this time, followed by the snap of branches. Keller lifted his binoculars, expecting to see an elk, but what emerged was far larger. A massive grizzly boar stepped into the open, swinging its head from side to side, testing the air. Its fur was thick, dark, and silver-tipped on the hump of its shoulders. The distance between them was roughly 60 yards, and the wind shifted unpredictably, complicating Keller's escape. Keller froze, then slowly lowered his binoculars and spoke in a clear voice, identifying himself. The bear noticed him immediately. Its posture changed, the head raised, eyes fixed, and body angled forward. Keller began backing toward the tree line, keeping his rifle in a low, ready position. He reached for his bear spray, but the bear's behavior escalated quickly. The boar's determined walk turned into a full run, closing the gap faster than Keller anticipated. Assessing the terrain, Keller realized the boggy marsh would slow both of them, but not enough to avoid confrontation. At roughly 35 yards, he raised his rifle, exhaled to steady himself, and aimed at the bear's chest. Adrenaline narrowed his focus. He fired the first shot. The impact struck high on the shoulder, causing the bear to stumble but not stop. Keller worked the bolt quickly, stepping back to maintain distance while keeping the rifle trained on the charging animal. His second shot, fired at approximately 20 yards, hit the center of the chest. The bear lurched, its front legs collapsing under its weight, and momentum carried it a few more yards before it rolled onto its side and lay motionless. Keller remained vigilant, rifle aimed, until he was certain the bear posed no further threat. The bear's deep breathing ceased, and he observed the surrounding brush as the cubs, or any other bears, remained unseen. He backed away slowly to a vantage point with better visibility and contacted Ramirez via handheld radio. They agreed to meet at a nearby ridge with reception before notifying authorities. Later that afternoon, an Idaho Fish and Game officer, accompanied by a federal wildlife specialist, arrived at the scene. They inspected the carcass, took precise measurements, and recorded GPS coordinates. The bear was an adult male in healthy condition. Tracks, disturbed vegetation, and the placement of the bullets corroborated Keller's account of a close-range charge and defensive shooting. Authorities concluded Keller had acted in accordance with self-defense guidelines. The experience reinforced for Keller how quickly a quiet morning in the field could shift into a life-threatening situation. Even in familiar territory, he realized that situational awareness, clear thinking, and readiness to act decisively were as essential as the weapon he carried. Reflecting on the encounter, Keller understood that in grizzly country, even a cautious hunter could find himself moments away from disaster, and every decision mattered when survival depended on it.
On the evening of September 22nd, 2018, lifelong friends Eric Dawson and Mike Harper anchored their aluminum skiff on the eastern shore of a remote lake in interior Alaska. Both men, in their early 40s and residents of Fairbanks, had drawn coveted moose tags for a limited entry unit accessible only by air and boat. Their base for the week was a small, weathered cabin set back from the waterline among spruce and birch trees. The area was quiet, remote, and rugged, perfect for hunting, but also prime bear country. The cabin was basic but sturdy. A single room with a metal roof, a heavy wooden door, and small windows reinforced with plywood shutters. A wood stove provided warmth, while a meat pole and gambrel stood ready outside for dressing game. Both men were experienced in bear country. They carried a .338 rifle, a 12-gauge shotgun loaded with slugs, and bear spray. They stored food and trash in sealed containers, maintaining a clean camp to avoid attracting wildlife. On the night of September 24th, a steady rain fell, drumming on the metal roof and masking distant sounds. The temperature hovered just above freezing. By 10:30 p.m., the cabin was dark except for the fading glow of the wood stove. Dawson slept in the bunk nearest the door, while Harper lay on the opposite side with his shotgun leaning against the wall. The forest outside was alive with the sound of rain and distant creaks of trees, a subtle reminder of the wildness surrounding them. Sometime after midnight, Harper awoke to a muffled scraping sound outside. Initially, he assumed it was wind pushing branches against the cabin. Then the noise changed. Something heavy brushed along the exterior wall, followed by the rattling of the meat pole chain. Harper sat up, listening carefully. Dawson stirred, asking what time it was. Before Harper could answer, the cabin shook violently as an impact struck the door. The wooden frame creaked under pressure, and the sound of labored breathing filtered through the rain. Both men were fully alert. Through a small crack near the top of the door, Dawson glimpsed a large, wet form pressed against it, its fur matted from rain and vegetation. The air carried the strong, musky odor of a grizzly. The animal began pawing higher, testing the structure. The hinges groaned, and the door bowed under repeated strikes. Harper gripped the shotgun, while Dawson raised his rifle, preparing to defend their lives. They shouted and banged on the interior walls, hoping to scare the animal away, but it did not retreat. Instead, it intensified its assault, striking with enough force to drive the bottom edge inward and snap the top latch. A gap opened at the upper corner, and a massive paw with long claws pushed through. The bear's head soon followed, jaws open, teeth glinting in the beam of Dawson's headlamp. Every instinct screamed danger. Dawson fired a single shot into the bear's chest at close range. The blast echoed harshly in the cabin, and the bear recoiled, backing out partially. Harper fired his shotgun through the gap, aiming low to avoid overpenetration. The bear retreated, crashing through the brush outside. Silence returned, punctuated only by the rain. Both men reloaded, reinforcing the damaged door with a heavy trunk for the remainder of the night. At first light on September 25th, they stepped outside cautiously. Only 20 yards from the cabin lay a massive boar grizzly,
motionless in the moss and low brush. Blood marked its path from the door, a stark reminder of the previous night's violence. Using a satellite phone, they contacted Alaska Wildlife Troopers. Troopers arrived later that day, confirming the bear's size, condition, and the events as described. The incident highlighted the unpredictable nature of bear encounters in remote Alaska. Despite careful preparation, clean camp, secure food, and readiness with firearms, the bear had attempted to breach their cabin. Their survival depended on calm, decisive action and effective use of available defenses. The experience left both men acutely aware of how close human life can come to danger in the Alaskan wilderness, and how respect for these powerful animals is essential when living or hunting in their habitat.
On the afternoon of September 14th, 2013, 31-year-old bow hunter Daniel Dan Mercer parked his truck at a small trailhead in northern Minnesota, near the edge of a mixed hardwood and conifer forest. He was scouting for black bear sign ahead of the state archery season, planning to check on natural food sources like acorn stands and berry patches. The sun had started its slow descent, casting long shadows between the trees, and a crisp wind rustled leaves across the forest floor. Mercer carried a compound bow, a small day pack, and bear spray clipped to his belt. He had been hunting deer and small game in this region for over a decade and was familiar with black bears as a regular presence. Most encounters in past seasons had been brief sightings at long range, or bears retreating quickly once they detected human scent. Yet he knew that even normally cautious animals could behave unpredictably when stalking or curious. By 3 p.m., Mercer was half a mile from the road, moving slowly along a faint game trail. Fresh tracks in a muddy patch indicated an adult black bear had passed through earlier that morning. Nearby logs had been torn apart in search of grubs, evidence of recent activity. While these signs were encouraging for hunting, they also confirmed that a large predator was active in the immediate area. As Mercer moved deeper into the woods, the sounds of distant traffic faded. A light breeze filtered through the trees, carrying the scent of earth and decaying leaves. Around 3:30 p.m., he heard a distinct twig snap behind him, followed by a rustle of undergrowth. Expecting to see a deer, he turned, but the woods remained still. A few minutes later, the sound returned. Footfalls, heavier this time, matching his pace. When he stopped, the sound stopped. When he walked, it resumed. Mercer's unease grew. He stepped off the trail and circled back quietly, using trees as cover to observe the path he had just walked. From behind a cluster of hazel brush, he finally saw movement. An adult black bear appeared, nose low, deliberately following the exact path Mercer had taken. The bear paused at a point Mercer had stopped earlier, sniffed the ground, then continued forward, scanning ahead. The distance between them was roughly 40 yards, close enough to trigger instinctive caution. Predatory black bear behavior can involve quiet trailing and focused attention on a person as potential prey. Mercer recognized the pattern immediately. He decided not to wait. Stepping from behind the brush, he raised his arms and shouted in a firm voice. The bear froze, ears forward, but did not retreat. Mercer continued to yell and clap his hands, attempting to convince the animal to leave. The bear took a few slow steps toward him, undeterred. Mercer adjusted his strategy. He unholstered his bear spray, removed the safety, and positioned himself near a tree for partial cover. The bear's gaze remained locked on him. At 25 yards, Mercer raised his bow in his left hand as a visual barrier, while keeping the spray ready in his right. The bear quickened its pace, its focused eyes fixed on him, muscles tensed for an approach. At approximately 15 yards, Mercer triggered the bear spray,
sending a bright orange stream toward the animal's face. The initial burst fell slightly short, but he maintained pressure, adjusting as the bear closed to under 10 yards. The effect was immediate. The bear veered sideways, pawing at its face and shaking its head. It vocalized in distress and retreated, crashing through the underbrush. Mercer continued to spray intermittently, creating a temporary barrier as he slowly backed toward open ground. He did not run. Instead, he moved steadily, glancing over his shoulder to monitor the bear's retreat. After several minutes, when he reached a wider section of the trail, he paused. The forest had returned to its usual background sounds. There was no sign of the bear. Mercer documented the encounter and later provided details to biologists, who classified it as a probable predatory approach interrupted by effective use of bear spray. The incident was a stark reminder of how even a normally elusive animal can quietly close the distance between routine scouting and serious danger. Mercer reflected on the experience, understanding that in bear country, constant vigilance, decisive action, and preparedness can mean the difference between life and death.
On the evening of July 3rd, 2018, Inuit hunter Noah Ikuma traveled by boat with his cousin, 19-year-old Peter, along the western shore of Hudson Bay near Sentry Island, Nunavut. They had left their home community earlier in the day to check traditional hunting grounds and set nets for Arctic char. The low, rocky islands and stretches of tundra along the coast were familiar to Noah, part of a landscape he had known all his life. The pale Arctic sunlight lingered above the horizon, casting long reflections across the water, while offshore ice floes drifted slowly with the currents. By late afternoon, they had pulled their nets, storing fish in insulated containers, and beached their aluminum boat on a gravel bar sheltered from the wind. They planned to spend the night on shore before returning home the next day. Their camp was simple: a small canvas tent, a cooking area downwind, and gear organized in plastic totes. Noah carried a .308 rifle, standard protection in polar bear country, and kept it close whenever they were outside. Despite familiarity with the terrain, he knew the risks. Polar bears could appear without warning, driven by hunger or curiosity. After a meal of char and bannock, they secured food in sealed containers and cleaned the cooking area. Noah then walked a slow circle around the camp, scanning with binoculars. Satisfied that no movement occurred nearby, he joined Peter in the tent, leaving the rifle within reach in the vestibule. A quiet calm settled over the gravel bar, broken only by the soft rush of waves and distant bird calls. Sometime after midnight, a sound woke Noah. A faint scraping, followed by the crunch of gravel. At first, he thought it might be wind-blown debris, but the tent wall bowed slightly under pressure. The smell hit him next. Musky, oily, unmistakably polar bear. Noah whispered for Peter to remain still. The pressure on the tent increased as a large shadow moved along the side, sniffing at the sleeping bags and gear. Peter pressed against the far wall, silent and tense. Noah's heart raced, yet he remained deliberate, sliding the rifle toward the entrance. Claws raked across the fabric, tearing a long vertical slit. The pale shape of a polar bear's head and shoulders appeared, its eyes scanning the interior. Noah maintained his composure. He clicked off the safety, careful not to startle the bear prematurely. As the animal pressed its head further inside, Noah called out sharply in Inuktitut, a loud, firm shout intended to create a brief distraction. In that pause, he fired a round directly into the bear's chest. The confined space amplified the sound, echoing off the tent walls. The bear jerked backward, partially withdrawing. Noah quickly chambered another round and fired at the retreating form, aiming for the shoulder.
The bear staggered, then turned away toward the shoreline. Noah and Peter cautiously exited the tent, scanning the area for movement. The bear collapsed near the water's edge, white fur stained from the bullets. After several tense minutes, it was clear the animal was dead. With first light, Noah used his satellite phone to contact local authorities. Wildlife officers from the territorial government traveled to the site by boat to document the scene. They confirmed the bear was an adult male in moderate condition. Their investigation concluded that Noah had followed established local practices for camping in polar bear country, maintaining a clean camp, keeping firearms accessible, and reacting decisively when faced with a life-threatening encounter. The experience reinforced the reality of living and hunting in the Arctic. Even a familiar landscape can become dangerous in an instant. Noah reflected on how quickly routine tasks, checking nets, setting up camp, could shift into critical survival scenarios. Every decision mattered, from keeping the rifle within reach to controlling fear and maintaining situational awareness. In polar bear country, hesitation can be fatal, and respect for the power and unpredictability of these predators is essential. The event remains a vivid reminder that preparation, calm judgment, and decisive action can save lives in some of the most remote wilderness on Earth.